This is Rick Rule for the Vancouver Natural Resources Investment Symposium, Virtual Edition 2021. I'm delighted today to bring on a spokesman, Walter Coles, who has been a friend of Sprott and a friend of our investors for many, many years. And delighted, too, to hear him talk about a deposit that has been rewarding us on and off for 2 decades. And further, to talk about what I think is a unique social and political arrangement with the Tahltan Indigenous Nation in Northwest British Columbia, whom I've had a commercial relationship going back all the way to 1984. Walter, I'm delighted to have you with us, and I'm delighted to hear about a deposit that has truly, for me at least in my career, been a gift that just keeps on giving. Welcome.
Well,
So
it's great.
go ahead. Where I think I'd start is an overview of Skeena and an overview of the history of this spectacular deposit. If you could give us the 30,000-foot summary of the history of the deposit and where you are with it today.
Yeah, Skeena is a junior mining company that's focused in the Golden Triangle of Northwest British Columbia. Our flagship project, as you say, is SK Creek. We have also the Snip deposit, which is very close by. These are both legendary past-producing underground mines. SK Creek, when it operated from 1994 until 2008, was the highest grade gold mine in the world, which is why it's such a legendary project. Skeena has taken on the opportunity to revitalize this mine that's been shut down for about 14 years. And we think, to quote you, Rick, we think it is the gift that can continue giving to all of our shareholders, both past and present.
And when you say the highest grade operating gold mine in the world, could you give us a sense of the historic grade?
Yeah, it's nothing short of astounding. We produced 3.3 million ounces of gold and 160 million ounces of silver. The gold equivalent grade was 2.5 ounces per ton. Keep in mind, this is a mine that produced annually gold equivalent 400,000 ounces a year. So not only was it a big mine, it had grade that was off the charts.
And by the way, your so-called second-tier deposit, Snip, was one of the most pleasant financial events of my career. So perhaps we should talk about Snip a little bit too. Another high-grade mine.
Yes, it's part of the illustrious history of the Golden Triangle. Snip operated from 1991 until 1999. It produced just over 1 million ounces of gold at a grade of about an ounce per ton. So again, like, where do you hear about in the world, mines that produce these kinds of quantities at these kinds of grades? There's a reason that this is the reason I think the Golden Triangle of British Columbia is the number one mining jurisdiction in the world right now.
Let's move ahead now and talk about the resources that you have delineated at Eske and how you plan to turn this back to account for shareholders yet again.
Yeah, there's the phrase that mines are not found; they are made. When we first optioned SK Creek from Barrick ran a process, and they invited like 25, 30 companies to submit bids for SK. This is back in 2017, and the way I understand it is only one or two companies submitted bids. We withdrew from the process because at that time there was just so much data missing from the evaluation process that we couldn't make a bid for this project. And fortunately, we had a good relationship with Barrick, and we were able to sort of restructure things as an option, and we took on this project. Our first resource that we came out with back in 2018 was about 2 million ounces at 10 grams. And then back in 2019, we updated that resource to 4 million ounces, open pittable at a grade of about 4 grams. And then just a month ago, we updated it again with our most recent resource, which is now 5.6 million ounces, maintaining that grade of just over 4 grams. And I don't think we're not done. I think there's a high probability that we will continue to grow it at the same type of clip over the next year or two.
And it's important to note that that 4 gram resource is mostly or all mineable by open pit, as against a global produced open pit grade of well south of a gram.
Yeah, that's right. Out of the 5.6 million ounces of resource, 5.3 million of those ounces are open pitable. And when I talk about the growth, I think there's tremendous growth opportunity to increase the open pit resource, and we haven't even scratched the surface of the underground opportunity. This is a VMS deposit. VMS deposits typically come in stacked sequences. Barrick targeted the highest sequence, which we call the contact mudstone. We put a handful of drill holes down through our prospective pit to test the lower mudstone layers, and we've had pretty darn interesting intercepts, which give me this, curiosity to follow up on that and go, how much more could be there as an underground component to this project? We exercised our option and acquired Eskay Creek from Barrick in October of last year. We have only owned this asset for 7 months now. So I still feel like it's early days in this project with our company, and I just can't wait to see um, how much more resource we can grow with the drilling we have planned ahead.
So if we assume that the value is established with the inventory of 4 gram material, open pitable material that you have, tell us something about the milestones for adding value in the next 12 to 18 months, either increasing the certainty around the known resource, uh, advancing it with sort of milestones to production, or exploration upside. Any or all of those would be of interest to me.
Sure. Well, on the confidence for what we have today, it's pretty darn high. Out of that 5.6 million ounces of resource, 5.3 million of those ounces are already in the measured and indicated category. We drilled about 100,000 meters last year of infill drilling to convert most of the inferred over to the M&I. The next step is the pre-feasibility study, which will be published next month in July. And that will demonstrate how much of that M&I resource converts over to reserves. So I think that's something that everyone should be watching for. And I think the conversion rate will be pretty high because, again, this is a VMS deposit with excellent continuity. It's not nuggety. It doesn't pinch and swell. It's like it was the bottom of the ocean floor, and it just has this beautiful continuity that helps us on reserve conversion, and it will also make for easier mining. As we look ahead, we've got 25,000 meters of exploration drilling planned for basically later this month. We'll start that and should have it done by the end of the summer. And we're targeting more shallow ounces because shallow ounces are cheap ounces. And look, you never know with the drill bit how much good fortune will smile on you, but some deposits treat you well. Some deposits are really hard. It's like no matter how much money you spend, you have trouble growing the resource, proving the continuity. That's not SK.
Well, I think that's right. History is very much on your side. And as you suggest, the experience around the world from volcanogenic massive sulfide districts has been that the deposits occur in bunches or at least on echelon. And you, I think, intelligently point out that one subsea horizon probably doesn't contain all the mineralization. I'm looking forward to seeing you test that thesis. Are you going to have the time and the treasure to do much work at Snip? And if so, what do you think will happen over there?
Snip. Um, Snip is harder than SK Creek because it's a different type of deposit. It's more of a mesothermic deposit. It's high grade, narrow veins, but
Right.
it's got incredibly attractive metallurgy, wonderful recoveries. Um, it's a different kind of project. We have 2 drill rigs turning on Snip right now. We're going to increase that to 4 drill rigs over the next month. We've got 20,000 meters of drilling planned at Snip. We have 650,000 ounces of a resource there at about 13 grams, so very high for an underground. And our target is try to grow that to 1 million ounces over the next couple months. So it's uh, it's very exciting.
Finally, the buzzword, for many reasons, good reasons, in the mining business these days is ESG. And I would suggest that you have a unique relationship with your indigenous hosts, the Taltans, with whom I've had a relationship going back almost 30 years. If you could describe something about the nature of your relationship with the Taltan people, and in particular, your recent initiative supporting their own conservation efforts, I think this is a great story.
Yeah, let me start by just describing a little bit about the Tahltan Nation. They have an area that comprises about 11% of all of British Columbia. So their territory is about the size of Portugal. They have been mining obsidian there thousands of years ago. They're also a commercial nation. They have a long history of being traders. So I think that long culture of being commercial and taking advantage of the natural resources that they're so well endowed with has set something up that I think they're one of the best indigenous communities in the world to work with from the perspective of a mining company. Now, having said all that, um, they care deeply about their land and their territory and their traditions, and we recognize that as that we're guests in Tahltan territory as operators there, and so we only work in Tahltan territory with their support and consent. And over the last 7 years that we've been operating in their territory, we have built uh, a relationship of mutual trust, and through ongoing dialogues, we've learned what are the areas, what are the issues that are sacred to the Tahltan First Nation, and I think they've also learned from us as a company that wants to create economic development and shared prosperity. They've learned, sort of what are the key points that are important to us as we advance our projects. And through this uh, relationship of mutual respect and trust, we've had some wonderful outcomes. The first is that we were honored a few months ago when the Tultan decided to invest $5 million into Skeena stock. It's the first equity investment the Tultan Nation has ever made into a mining company. And then the second thing we did that I think was quite extraordinary for a junior mining company is we took about 3,500 hectares of mineral claims that we owned, and in collaboration with the Tultan, the BC government, the BC Parks Foundation, we turned this area, we call it the spectral mineral claims, into a new wildlife preserve. And we did that because the Taltan had told us that those spectrum claims were close to Mount Ziza, which is a sacred mountain for Taltan culture. And once we realized that this is an area that would create turmoil in the Taltan Nation if we tried to develop something there, we knew that the right thing to do was work with the Taltan to create a protected area there. So I'm sure there are more innovative things that will come of our relationship with the Taltan, and we're excited to work closely with them in advancing Eskay Creek and Snip into mines again.
Well, I'm really looking forward to having you back next year so that we can hear about the value that you've created. As I say, my own relationship with this district goes back to Snip through SK. It truly has been the gift that keeps on giving. I'm delighted too that you are developing this endowment with the local indigenous people. My own opinion of the Taltan is that you have understated the value of your host. I think they are, at least in my experience, the finest indigenous group to do business with from a mining company perspective in the world. So thank you very much. Tell our attendees how they can find you, how they can learn more about what you're doing.
Yeah, well, start with our website. It's skeenaresources.com. There's contact information there. Feel free to reach out anytime, and we're happy to follow up with any of your audience for any questions that they might have.
And be sure, too, to drop into the Skeena booth at the Vancouver Natural Resources Investment Symposium. Either Walter or the wonderful Ms. Kelly Earl, somebody will be there to answer your questions. Walter, thank you for your efforts on behalf of our investors over time, and thank you for your continued support and sponsorship of the Vancouver Natural Resources Investment Symposium. It's a pleasure to have you with us.